Hi everyone, this is Ashley Klein-Jimenez from Prevent Connect, and you are joining us for our web conference today titled Supporting Women and Girls Leadership in Sport to Prevent Sexual and Domestic Violence. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to be able to welcome my colleague and my co-host for today, Lindsay McDaniel Mapp. Lindsay is a prevention manager for Reliance and one of my CalCASA, California Coalition Against Sexual Assault colleagues. So Lindsay, how are you today?
Wonderful. Thanks, Ashley. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks. It's exciting to have a co-host.
It is a really great first time that we get to test this out. So thanks for allowing us to be in this space.
Yeah. So Lindsay, I want to pass it over to you so you can share a little bit about Reliance and set us up for the conversation that we are going to have with our guests a little bit later on.
Wonderful. So Reliance is a collaborative initiative that started in 2015 with seed funding from the National Football League, and our bold mission is to end sexual violence in one generation. And what we hope to do is advance the field nationally in 4 primary areas, looking at how sexual violence conversations can be shifted in and through the media, and that's led by our partners at the National Sexual Violence Resource Center. And then, of course, as a second partner of Reliance at the California Coalition Against Sexual Assault Prevent Connect, we're looking at a second arm of Reliance that looks at lifting up sexual violence prevention that's happening nationally, with a specific focus on how sexual violence prevention is happening in and through the sports sector. And then our third partner, the National Alliance to End Sexual Violence, has been looking at and leading our third area of action, which is lifting up national sexual violence prevention and intervention policy at the federal and state level. And then a fourth thing that we support together at Reliance that pulls from the seed funding we got from the NFL is that we have a grant program that has distributed almost $2 million and supported over 30 grantees in the last 2 years. And we are really thrilled today to hear from one of the Reliance grantees who will be discussing their incredible program that supports girls' leadership in sport. So I'm just going to briefly say hello to our presenters. We have Rebecca Milliman from the Harborview Center for Sexual Assault and Traumatic Stress.
Hi, everyone.
Thanks, Rebecca. And we also have Kayla, a student athlete that was part of this. Sorry, I'm trying not to say the Athletes as Leaders program. So hi, Kayla.
Hello.
And we also have Carlin, who is also a student athlete that participated in the Athletes as Leaders program.
Hello.
Hi. Great, and so we will be hearing from them in just a moment, but first I wanted to provide a little bit of framing about why both Reliance and the Athletes as Leaders program is looking at sport. So first, we know that sport is a vast and often transformative sector that develops people. So there's millions of young people that participate in sport and often participate throughout their lifetime. And young people and adolescents and teenagers often learn values, skills, and normative behavior by participating in the sports sector. And it's often a really powerful place where relationships are built, both peer-to-peer and adult mentorship. So this is a really important developmental system to be looking at. Second, we also know that sport is a powerful social influencer, and we've seen countless examples of sport events being used as platforms to make statements about social justice issues. We've seen that in the last week or two as the NFL season has started. And we also know that athletes and coaches are often influential members of the broader community and often also viewed as leaders in the broader community. And last, we know and have seen that those that don't even participate in sport but attend sporting events is a place where the community convenes and are wonderful places to engage in a broader conversation and engage a broader audience. So for all of these reasons, this is why we're really looking at sport as a powerful sector for the prevention of sexual violence. So when we look at what's happening now, in sport and where we are now in terms of sport contributing to the prevention of sexual violence or contributing to the problem and continuing to support sexual violence. We see that sport cultures and environments do play a role in the way that sexual violence is perpetuating in our society, and not solely responsible for it, but part of, can contribute to part of the problem. We see this in the way that gender socialized through sport, in a way that supports demeaning and devaluing women and girls, and emphasizing hypermasculinity. We also see the way that sport systems have had a lack of accountability and response and intervention when sexual violence occurs within that system. And there's also this tension between sport supporting aggression and dominance and inequities that really comes into conflict with some of the values and the things that we're promoting that would really get to the root causes of dismantling and ending sexual violence. The flip side to that is that we also know that where we are now is that sport has not yet realized its potential to prevent sexual and domestic violence. It's a hugely connected system. So we've already talked about the fact that it's a developmental system where young people start playing and participating in sport from a very young age and continue on throughout their lifetime. Often, that is something that they're connected with throughout their lifetime. So in terms of violence prevention, it's a great system to think about how this is sprinkled throughout somebody's life, how it builds, how sexual violence prevention builds and is connected throughout this system. And because it's a developmental system, there's a clear alignment with the teaching of values, skills, and norms that really aligns with sexual violence prevention approaches and techniques. We've already talked about the fact that it's a cultural influencer, and so as a cultural influencer, our hypothesis is that if sport were really truly realizing its potential to prevent sexual and domestic violence, the reverberations in the broader community could be huge and could really set a standard and set a tone for what's acceptable and what's not acceptable within a broader context. There are also inherent protective factors within sport that we already know about. We've mentioned, forming healthy relationships and other protective factors that really are already existing within the sport context. And last, the fact that sport is a place where people are engaged with and being in contact with role models, especially positive adult role models in a lot of cases. This is a really great place for people to have those supports. So Reliance is looking at, if we're here now, where is it that we're working towards? And so our big vision for sport is that sport would be this place, if sport were really realizing its potential and no longer contributing to the problem of sexual and domestic violence, but really realizing its potential to be a part of the solution to end sexual violence. We believe that norms, values, and behaviors that are taught and reinforced throughout the sport pipeline, meaning the sport pipeline from youth to high school to college to pro, will cultivate and support healthy individuals, teams, and communities, and that sport culture will contribute to ending sexual violence in one generation. So in an effort to understand how we got from where we are now to where we want to go to this vision, Reliance conducted an asset mapping exercise over the last 2 years where we looked at how sexual violence prevention is happening in and through sport, specifically looking at where there's traction in sport in implementing sexual violence prevention and where there are gaps. And one important theme that surfaced in that asset mapping exercise was that there was a lot of traction in the sports system in engaging male athletes and coaches, but there are very few programs or resources specifically targeting and supporting the leadership of women and girls in the sports sector, which we know is a huge part of the sports sector. So this is why we're really excited to hear about the work specifically that Athletes as Leaders has done with the support of the Harborview Center for Sexual Assault and Traumatic Stress in filling this gap. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our presenters so that they can tell you more about their work. But before I do that, I think we are going to go, Ashley, I'm going to kick it to you to the question. I forgot about the question that we've got in advance of that.
Thanks, Lindsay. Well, thank you so much for setting that up. And I think we're really excited to hear from our presenters, but we'd love to hear from you all in the audience. about what examples you've seen of engaging women and girls in sexual violence prevention through sport. So if there are any examples that you're aware of that you've been involved in, we would love to hear from you on that. And you can use the text chat box to let us know what those examples are. And Lindsay, I know that there are also some resources from Reliance that we hope you can share at the end for folks who are interested in that. So maybe we'll come back to this question once folks have time to think a little more about that. But I think it would be great to go ahead and pass this over to our guest today. So Rebecca, I'm going to go ahead and give you the podium so you have all the control. And we are really excited to hear more about the Athletes as Leaders program. Just give me a second. My computer is not responding to me. So Rebecca, I'm actually going to get you to your first slide.
Okay, sounds great. And you can hear me, correct?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear.
Terrific, thank you. Thank you so much again to both of you, to Prevent Connect and Reliance, for hosting us today. I am very excited to share more about the program that we have created in hopes that you may find it beneficial as a primary prevention strategy in your local community. And when you just asked the text chat question, I see several people commenting with lots of different programs out there for female identified athletes, which is great. I saw several people mention SLAY, and SLAY is what we're presenting on today under a new name called Athletes as Leaders. So for those of you who know about the origins of the program, you will notice a new name here. We are now calling it Athletes as Leaders instead of SLAY, which stands for Student Leaders and Athletic Youth. And we'll be explaining more about this name change in just a few minutes. I also want to just say I'm really excited to be co-presenting today with Kayla and Carlin. I had the chance to present at the National Sexual Assault Conference, and one thing that was really missing was the voice of the athletes themselves, and I'm so fortunate to have both of them here today to talk about the program. They were part of that original pilot group that went through the program nearly 2 years ago and also served on our advisory board where we had athletes give us input into the creation of the program. So here's a little game plan for today. We're going to be looking at the prevention project that we're doing at a local high school here in Seattle. Then we're going to be looking at the program itself for girls sports, as well as the toolkit that we have created that's available for free online. And then lastly, we'll be looking at the evaluation results and opportunities for folks to participate in an upcoming pilot project that we have coming up in the fall and the winter seasons this year. So a little bit more about what we're doing at Garfield High School here in Seattle. I just wanted to provide some context here that this is part of a wider comprehensive project that has been supported by our state RPE funding, which stands for Rape Prevention and Education, as well as funding from Reliance, which helped us develop the girls sports team and make it available nationally. So I wanted folks to kind of see the bigger picture here. We're doing policy work at the district. We're doing education and health classes. We're supporting students when they want to do campaigns and outreach around sexual assault prevention. We're doing staff training. We hope to do a parent training component this coming year. We are doing coaching boys into men with the boys sports teams. And this last bullet point here is what we're going to be focusing on today. This was actually not originally in my original prevention proposal to our funders, but when I first met with principal to discuss the plan about 2 years ago, it was really to just do coaching boys and men with one team. And the principal of the school felt that this is something that really every team should get. So his suggestion was to offer coaching boys into men with every single team. And he was super supportive of the program to begin. And of course, I saw the benefit of engaging athletes because that could have a really huge impact on the school culture. I believe at Garfield about half of the student body plays at least one sport. So that was huge, right? But my immediate thought was, what about the girls? Of course, in our field, we do want to have a focus on engaging men and boys. We know that from the research that that's the best practice. But what about the girls? If we're marketing this kind of amazing leadership opportunity to boys, we have to have the same opportunity for all genders. This is actually a legal requirement under Title IX, and it's also best practice in our field. And athletes on girls' teams also have social capital at the school. Lindsay was talking earlier about the social capital that athletes hold in a community. And female-identified students understand deeply these issues that we're talking about, such as sexism and rape culture and harassment, because many of them have experienced it personally. So their voices really should be uplifted and promoted as leaders in the community on these issues. And with all these comprehensive strategies happening in the same place over a period of a few years, we're really hoping to see some community-level change at Garfield. And Kayla, I'll hand it over to you.
Kayla, are you still on the line with us? Maybe you are. We can't hear you. Oh, there you are.
Okay, awesome. All right. So Athletes as Leaders is a program that I was in the pilot group for. The program is all about developing student athletes as leaders. It is a program that encourages athletes to create a safe and supportive community for their teams and at their schools. It's based on research and best practices in sexual assault prevention. The program originally started at my school, Garfield High School in Seattle, and Carl and I were in the original pilot group. We also gave input into the development of the program and how it should be for a future group. So far, it has been implemented in 11 teams at Garfield and 4 sites nationally. We recommended that this is as a complement to other programs that involve men and boys in active prevention efforts, such as our boys team does coaching boys and the men. The boys teams at our school have also done the coaching boys and the men program that pretty much help boys the same way that Athletes as Leaders help girls.
Thank you, Kayla. And before we go any further, I also want to acknowledge a few more people as well, some of whom are on the call. We received a lot of support and contribution from some of our colleagues in the field, and I would just like to mention them briefly. So my co-authors, Jatia Benton and Lisa Brooks. From Futures Without Violence, Jasenia Gorbea and Brian O'Connor. From the NSVRC, Mo Lewis. From our state coalition, Washington Coalition of Sexual Assault Programs, Scott Mineski. We also had a subcommittee from the Coaching Boys into Men National Advisory Board who met and reviewed the curriculum and gave us some great input, and I appreciate your thoughts and inputs. I think a couple of you are on the call today. And last but not least, the athletes of Garfield High School who were extremely helpful. This program actually looks quite different than it did 2 years ago, and that was because we were able to pilot it with support from the coaches and athletic director and principal to make this happen and get feedback from teams to make it the best it could be and get it ready for national dissemination. So I would like to acknowledge those folks today and thank them again. And we're ready for the next slide.
You should see that. Carlin, are you on the line?
Yes, I am. I want to talk briefly about the origins of the program and its original name. So many of you mentioned in the comments SLAY, and that was the original name of the program. It's an acronym that stands for Student Leaders in Athletic Youth. And it was coined by the original pilot group, which both Kayla and I were in the Youth Advisory Board for the program. We voted on it, came up with it on our own. And many of you probably know that SLAY is actually a very common slang term used by young people. It's very common in high schools and everything. And so it's the Urban Dictionary definition is that it's to succeed in something amazing. And it's used commonly like, oh, you slayed that, you did it really well. And we do want to take the time to acknowledge that this term traditionally had a negative connotation, but we appreciate that the youth have reclaimed this term and use it in a very positive and empowering way, which aligns with the goals for the program. But Rebecca will talk a little bit about the national name for the program.
Thank you, Carlin, and I would like to explain why we have this new name here. So as the word started to spread about the program and it's been promoted a lot more nationally, we have received feedback from adult stakeholders in several communities across the country who have concerns with the acronym specifically, SLAY. And we did hear from communities who want to do the program with their school, but felt that the name alone was a barrier to stakeholders allowing it in. So with a lot of thought and a lot of consultation, we have decided to explore a new name that can be used nationally and still really gets at the heart of what the program is all about. And I had the chance to talk to Kayla and Carlin and some of the other youth who were really involved at that original group, and they said, you know, if it will benefit other schools, we're totally fine with changing the name. So we're still going to continue to use our original name locally, which is how it was intended. But when the program started, we just really did not anticipate the interest it would receive from just a lot of diverse communities in diverse regions. And we've worked really hard to create a program that's culturally competent, rooted in anti-oppression, you know, based on the research in our field, and that's really relevant to young people. So we wanted the name to be able to translate in many communities and to allow the program to benefit young people in other communities besides ours. So therefore, we have landed on this new name, which is Athletes as Leaders. And the name is simple, to the point, inclusive, and we think it will give the program opportunity to grow. We also have a new URL, which is athletesasleaders.org. And if you love the old name, you're welcome to still use it. And the old website is also still working, so it redirects to the new website. And next slide, please.
Sorry, everyone.
Yes?
This is Ashley. I'm having a few technical issues on my end. Lindsay, if you wouldn't mind taking over and helping advance those slides, I'd appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Rebecca, are we where we need to be?
Yes, we are, and Kayla's up.
All right.
Kayla, are you there?
Oh, yes. Is it working?
Yes, we
Hello?
can hear you.
Okay, awesome. All right, so on this slide, you can see there are some pictures that pretty much show how society kind of views girls in certain places. You can see that they're trying to make her all pretty, to make her, you know, fit in, how the other girls are talking about her. And this is pretty much what high school girls face today. There are a lot of difficult issues, and I believe a lot of them stem from social media. High school girls all feel the need to look and act a certain way in order to be appreciated and accepted. And if you don't look that way, society will kind of look at you different. And there are people in the social media world who look flawless and always get all attention. And I feel that affects a lot of high school girls' perception of what they feel like they should be. They face issues with boys who want them to act, you know, very sexual with them, but be very proper and ladylike it when they're out in the world. But they can't be sexual with a lot of people like boys can, because they'll be looked at differently, and they'll be looked at as like a whore or a slut, or be called names and like outcasted because they're trying to do the same as their male counterparts, but they can't. And this is also the same you see in sports. On my basketball team, we don't really get as much attention as the boys team does because they're back-to-back state champs, and they always get new equipment. Everybody's always at their games, even though they're right after ours. They'll have a lot more fans, and equipment will go to them, but the girls won't receive the same attention. And it's just sees how society just sees girls as pretty much inferior and not as important. And I'm going to pass it on to Carlin.
Yeah, and piggybacking off of what Kayla said, high school girls really are facing countless issues, and one of the most prominent ones for me is body shaming, which I think stems even from school dress codes at a young age, where girls are taught that they can't wear certain things because it'll distract the boys, or and this teaches girls a couple of things. It teaches them that they should be ashamed of their natural body, that it needs to be covered up, and also that the blame is on them if a boy gets distracted. And Lastly, it reinforces the idea that boys are incapable of controlling themselves, and I really think that this is prevalent throughout high school, and also in high school, rumor spreading is something you're practically guaranteed to encounter. There's always rumors going around the school about who's hooking up with who, or friend drama, and girls are so often forced to feel embarrassed, ashamed, upset about something they did because rumors were spread about them, and then they're labeled with a reputation, and it affects people they don't even know think about them. And lastly, I want to talk a little bit also about victim blaming, which I touched on earlier above, in dress codes, where girls have to wear a certain thing. Girls have to take actions because they have to change what they wear and cover up. If they don't, they'll get unwanted attention from boys. And this teaches girls that the natural state of their body and how much they show of it then gives warrant to boys to sexually harass them, and it ties into rape culture because with the idea that what a girl wears constitutes whether or not she's a slut or conveys the message that she was asking for it, yet again teaches girls that they can't be free to wear whatever they want and to express themselves. And these are just some of the many things girls face in high school, and there's so many negative stereotypes about both girls and boys that are reinforced in high school. And Kayla talked about this earlier, that one is that girls are weaker and have to on a man, and that goes both ways because on the other side there's the idea that boys have to be strong and protect women and not show emotion that really contributes to things like hypermasculinity. And so all of these are issues that high school girls have to face in today's day and age, and Rebecca will talk about how this program's unique approach counteracts a lot of that.
Thank you, Carlin and Kayla. So we think that this program is different and unique compared to some of the other programs out there that have been more traditionally aimed at women and girls. And I don't just mean programs, I mean messages that I think a lot of us were raised with. We hear these messages all the time, especially aimed at girls, about, don't walk alone at night and always go with a buddy, and teaching girls self-defense and teaching women to watch their drink or don't drink and to dress modestly and be careful what kind of messages you put out there. And these messages, as I think most of you know, it really puts the onus on women to protect themselves from sexual assault, and they tend to blame the victim instead of the person who actually perpetrated the assault. What actually prevents sexual assault is preventing perpetration, which we know is very hard to do. And these victim blaming messages are kind of deeply ingrained in our society, even among women and girls themselves. So what we're trying to do in this program is build empathy for survivors and an understanding that assault is never the victim's fault. We also explore the ways that girls themselves actually do contribute to maintaining rape culture and gender stereotypes, and how they can dismantle these attitudes and challenge gender stereotypes, not perpetuating, things like girl-on-girl hate and slut-shaming and that sort of thing. So we really encourage the athletes to empower one another rather than bringing each other down. When the girls support each other and when they have a kind of a strong positive culture on their team and supportive culture on their team, we think that will spread to the rest of the school, and then in the hopes that sexual violence and sexual harassment will be less likely to occur in this community. We encourage them to really be leaders in the school and to speak up around these issues.
Sounds like we're getting some feedback, so I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone's lines again, and then speakers, I'm going to need you to unmute yourselves by pressing *6.
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6.
Okay, speakers, I'll need to have you press *6 to unmute yourself again. Rebecca, are you there?
I'm
Can you
here.
hear me?
Yep.
All right.
Okay, Carlin.
Yeah, So I'm going to speak a little bit about the program goals itself. So the goals of the program are to build strong teams and foster healthy relationships among athletes, their peers. It builds trust as well as a positive girl culture. And then it sets the expectations for what acceptable behavior within the team, the school, and the larger community is. The program defines abusive behaviors as well as what healthy relationship behaviors are, and it challenges harmful gender stereotypes in media messages, along with recognizing that girls can play a role in reinforcing either harmful or healthy gender norms for both men and women. And Rebecca will talk about the program structure.
So the program is designed to fit into the sports season, and the sessions usually happen once a week, and they take about 20 minutes to complete. They're meant to be done during the team's practice time, so the model is that the coaches would need to commit to some of their practice time being used for this purpose. And the facilitators are female-identified mentors in the community, which I will discuss next. So and here's a picture of Jatia and Shalea. So Jatia on the left is one of the co-authors of the program, and Shalea is our cheer coach. And the two of them actually right now are facilitating this program this summer with our cheer team at Garfield. So the ideal characteristics of and attributes of a mentor, which is the person who would be facilitating the group, would be someone who is female identified. So this program really does address sensitive topics. And we do talk about sexual assault. We do talk about body image. We do talk about topics related to internalized sexism. And so because of this, we feel that women or folks who have experienced female socialization will have a higher comfort level probably to discuss these topics and a deeper understanding of the issues. We do recognize, and I have learned, that many girls' teams are coached by men. And so partnering with a mentor from the community may be a good option. So near peers, what this means is in the focus groups, a lot of athletes have said that they love hearing from near peers, which generally means someone who's a little bit older than them, maybe within 10 years. The program is really based on social norms change. It's not so much a skill building curriculum. We just don't have time with 20 minutes. So we're gearing it more as a social norms change program. And so having a facilitator who the athletes feel is relatable and credible will make it more relevant. Someone who's well trained, so ideally the facilitators who are mentoring the team have completed some type of education or training related to some of these topics that we talk about. But it's not a requirement. We just have a simple 2-hour mentor training that the person can complete, and that would be kind of the bare minimum. So what you're getting today on the web conference is really similar to what mentors would get. And this web conference will also be recorded and available if folks want to watch it afterwards if they have someone in their community who needs to be trained. So diverse mentors, we also think it's really important for them to have role models and mentors who they can relate to. So people that they feel that represent the community that you serve and pay particular attention to making sure you have representation from marginalized communities. And with our groups at Garfield, in every group we've had either 1 or 2 mentors co-facilitating the group together. But all you need is 1. So we also think it's important that consistency is valued, meaning that we want someone that can really commit to the full season and to building relationships with the athletes and to being able to really do this once per week. And last but not least, it's okay if the mentor doesn't have all of these characteristics. I personally have facilitated several groups and I don't meet all of these characteristics. And really what's most important is that you want someone who's passionate about the topic, passionate about creating a safe and respectful community, and their enthusiastic approach and their sensitivity to the topics will really go a long way. This program also utilizes YouTube videos, which features a very diverse perspective from different young people, and it has clear scripts for facilitation, so it's really easy to follow along. You can see here, when identifying mentors, you can see here about some of the possibilities you could consider to facilitate a group. We've piloted these sessions with athletes as facilitators, and Kayla was one of them. So Kayla, can you talk about what that experience was like for you facilitating the group?
Hello. So mentoring the group was really fun. It was different being in front of all my teammates trying to conduct them because I'm not necessarily a captain on the team. So being in front of them and talking about important topics was definitely eye-opener for all of us because some of the topics I wasn't even really all that much aware of and how I didn't know how much I didn't know about the topic. And we were all just learning together, and I thought it brought us close together as a team. And being able to teach them and teach myself was really, really fun because being able to see that, oh, I didn't know about this topic was like, oh, now I can learn and see how I can prevent things and keep them from happening and help other people know, like, make them more aware of what they're doing and how they can stop, this from happening again.
Thank you. And one more note, if you are bringing in mentors from the outside, from outside your program or outside the school, you want to make sure to follow the policies of that school or athletic organization to make sure that they're properly screened, like completing background checks for any volunteers, interns, or staff that you bring in. And we've also, on our website toolkit, we've created a document that's called Recommended Policies, and we have lots of tips for folks in getting this up and running, including how to select mentors and how to properly screen them, and also about how to build relationships with teams, such as attending games. So sometimes if this mentor is from outside of the team, if it's not the coach or not an athlete, we want that person to be able to build that relationship with the athlete. So we have other recommendations such as attending practices or games to kind of get to know more about the team, about the coach, about the athletes, and really making sure that you actually build in time for this. And we're ready for the next slide. And Kayla, this is you.
I was on mute again. Okay, so here are the 10 session topics that we go through well in play. Here's an example of a few of them. In Session 3, Privilege and Oppression, we talk about how people who have privilege can use their platform to speak up against things that are not fair or equal to help others who can't necessarily express their opinions the way they want to. In Session 8, messages about manhood, we talk about how society teaches all of us that men are supposed to be strong, protect women, and be the breadwinner, like Carlin said earlier, and how they can't be emotional and show how they feel and express their feelings. We learn how to not succumb to the way society wants us to see men, and instead that they can be emotional and they don't always have to be strong or be the breadwinner or be the man as we think. In Session 9, we discuss girl positivity. This is basically how we can support each other better and pretty much build each other up instead of breaking each other down. We talk about treating each other better, focusing on our strengths, and letting girls and women be who they really want to be.
So Kayla discussed the different session topics. On the next slide, we will talk about the structure of a session in particular. So the way all the sessions work is they all follow the structure, and we do all of this in about a 20-minute time span. So we introduce the week's topic and start by showing a short video from YouTube, and it relates to the topic. The videos are on message and feature many voices of young people, including young women of color. After the video, we have a facilitated discussion about the topic and the video itself. The questions for the discussion are very scripted in the curriculum. There's normally about 3 questions that build on the key concepts from the video. And then there are several key discussion points for the mentors to say. And this really allows for the mentors to have this scripted questions, but allows for the athletes themselves to really open up within the discussion. And lastly, after all of that, the athletes will come up with the new team norms during the team talk. These are the new social norms for the team. We ask them to think about what they can do to address the issue at hand, whether it's at practice, at games, at school, or in the community. So this team norm is written up and established and then revisited and implemented within the team culture.
Thanks, Carlin. Rebecca, before I pass it over to you, I'm going to go ahead and mute all of the phone lines again because we're still getting some feedback. So I'm going to do that, and then Rebecca, you'll need to unmute yourself. Give me 1 second.
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6.
All right, Rebecca, it's all yours.
Okay, so instead of watching this video, I don't want to mess up anyone's computer having both a webinar and a video going. So I think many of you have seen this video. It has several million views on YouTube. But I'll just describe briefly what it is so we can kind of run you through what a typical session looks like for athletes as leaders. And this content is from session number 2, which is addressing challenging gender stereotypes with the athletes. So the video is called #LikeAGirl, and it's created by the Always campaign. And basically, long story short, what they do on the video is they ask younger people, and I would say very young people, like school-age children, what it means to do something, quote unquote, like a girl. And they ask older, kind of more adolescent and young adult age people, you know, what it means to do something like a girl. And you just notice a very stark difference between the younger people and the older people. And we talk in the group about that term, like a girl, and how it has traditionally been used in a very negative way. You know, when people, and you still hear people say this all the time, including coaches, like, oh, you're throwing like a girl, you're hitting like a girl, you're running like a girl, you're crying like a little girl. And we talk about what it really means to kind of reclaim that term in a positive way and to be a role model to especially younger girls. So we talk about the things that athletes embody, the athletes already embody, and the ways that they're already kind of defying stereotypes, showing strength, toughness, and focus. So just to give you a few examples of our discussion questions, we ask them, you know, after watching the video, what differences did you notice between the young girls' responses and the older girls' responses? And then next, people are not necessarily born with the idea that girls are weak or inferior, or even that boys and girls are really all that different. Where are these messages often learned? And so we have a little discussion around that, and then the mentor kind of brings home the key concepts with some talking points. And then next we move into the last section, and Kayla's going to give you an example of what that looks like.
So after watching the videos and having a short discussion about it, the team creates a new team of norms during the team talk. So we are going to ask you these questions, and we want you to type your answers in the chat box. As we have discussed, the term like a girl traditionally has a negative connotation. Young people have reclaimed that term to mean something more positive and empowering. We are going to do that now. Please fill in the blank. Girls can be.
So we'd love to hear from you, audience, about how you would finish that sentence. And thank you. I'm seeing Kayla, Rebecca, Carlin, Lindsay. I'm seeing things come across. Girls can be strong, powerful, amazing, smart, badasses, independent. Yes, anything they want. Powerful. Lots of powerful. Lots of anythings too. Mm-hmm. So not putting any boundaries on what girls can be.
Warrior.
So,
brave.
Fighters.
Fighters.
Yeah. These are great. Thanks. So back to you, Kayla.
I can take the next one here. So next we ask the athletes how they can challenge those social messages and limited roles for girls. But we're going to add on to that a little bit more for you all today. So we want in the text chat for you to answer this question. How are you challenging the social messages and limited roles for girls in your prevention work?
So we'll let
Go ahead and type your answers.
Answer that. So Carol says by modeling. Katrina says explaining there's no such thing as boy or girl color or thing, so trying to break down those gender norms. There's a lot coming through.
Language, yeah, language, discussions around gender and double standards, working with scenarios and tolerating negative stigma. Again, more around traditional gender norms, role modeling.
Yeah, Leah says media literacy, activities that help define and then reject stereotypes.
Centering the voices of women in color.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone, for these great examples.
Okay, so we have one last question. Who's doing a team talk, and the question is, what would you say to a girl who's trying to change the way she looks or acts to fit in? So go ahead and type your answers into the chat for that.
And as we wait for those to come across, and in terms of the other question, folks said, creating platforms for people to speak, whether that's using social media or some other kind of platform, just having discussions, right? Opening up those lines of communications. For this last question about what would you say to a girl who is trying to change the way she looks or acts to fit in, be yourself, you're enough. Does this change
be true to yourself.
Who you are? Yeah, what else are you seeing, Lindsay?
Yeah, don't allow others to define you. Ask why. Be you. You are worthy. Help me understand what's going on here. Real friends love and accept you for who you are. Ask some questions around, like, is that who you truly want to be? Variety is the spice of life. Thank you, Christina. You're beautiful inside and out.
I like Marissa, stay weird, stay you.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you all so much for sharing these. Rebecca, Carlin, Kayla, I want to pass it back over to you. Any thoughts about what's coming up in the text chat from folks?
Well, I love all the answers. And I think a lot of what folks are saying are kind of exactly what we're hoping to do in this work. And it really is inspiring, actually, reading everyone's messages. Kayla and Carlin, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, these are all pretty much what I was thinking. These are all great responses, and I love to hear that everybody else has the same thoughts as I do.
Yeah, and all of these things are really important messages that young girls do need to hear, and that's what the hopes of the program are.
So here on this next slide, you can see in the quote bubbles, these are quotes from athletes who have gone through the program and how they answered these questions during the session. So you can see some similar sentiment from some of the comments we saw earlier. So be yourself. Don't use language that puts girls down. Tell younger girls they can be whatever and whoever they want. And girls can be tough, powerful, and amazing. So here are the expectations for coaches. And while we do have female-identified coaches who have facilitated the program as mentors, most of the coaches we have worked with have been male-identified. And so we do have a kind of a more brief training for coaches, or at least kind of a little check-in where I talk to them ahead of time. And some of the information that we share for them includes this kind of question on, if they're willing to commit to the program. We talk about the benefits of the program and see if they want to participate. At our school locally, it's kind of become the expectation because we have had almost every team, actually we've had every team participate in the program. So at this point, coaches usually are really on board and want to do it. And So we talk about, especially for male-identified coaches, if they should be in the room or not while these sessions are going on. And actually the way we've handled it is we've just asked the athletes themselves if they want their coach in the room. And on one team with basketball, they did want their coach in the room, and so he sat in the sessions and was present. He didn't really have much of a speaking role, but I think both the coach and the athletes felt it was an opportunity for him to kind of get to know them better. But there's also been spaces where athletes would prefer to have it be a female identified only space, and so I think it should be left up to the athletes, and that's how we've handled it in the past. We do ask them to commit to a regular schedule and to really communicate with mentors if there's a schedule change. What I have learned is spring sports are a little bit more challenging because here in Seattle, you might have heard we get some rain, and things kind of change last minute with the spurts. And so the practices get rained out, the games get rained out, and so sometimes we have to schedule things last minute, and when we do that, we just ask that the coach communicates pretty closely with the mentor who's facilitating. And then outside of the program sessions, we really hope that coaches can kind of reinforce some of the key messages. And so we train them on, first of all, this concept that there are lots of ways to be a girl, so including being a strong, tough, and awesome athlete, or any way that an athlete chooses to express their gender is valid. So some girls present as more stereotypically feminine or girly, and some present as more stereotypically masculine. Some care about the way that they look, some don't care about the way that they look. Whatever the case, we want all athletes to feel included and supported on the team. We also want coaches to focus on accomplishments. So we talk in the program about how so often girls and women are first viewed for their body and their appearance. And it's often the first thing that we comment on when we see women and girls. And so we think it's really important that girls know their value, and their worth is really not just in their body, but we have a whole session that's kind of devoted to practicing giving someone a compliment that's not focused on their appearance. So we want coaches to reinforce this by not focusing on their appearance, on their hair, on their clothes, unless maybe it is related to the sport or to the performance. We also encourage the team to support one another and to be proud of their accomplishments. We want coaches to fight for recognition for their team among the school. I can't remember, I think it was Kayla was saying earlier about how sometimes the perception is that the boys team gets more resources, gets more attention, gets more fans, gets their banners hung up at the school, etc. And we want coaches of girls teams to fight for the same level of recognition. We also lastly talk about consent and boundaries. So coaches can really model good consent and boundaries with their athletes. They can model good boundaries such as asking them before they touch them, before taking pictures of them, keeping their relationship just focused on the sport and the team, not having any kind of special outside relationships with certain athletes, really always having open communication with the parents. And this is because I come from a sexual assault prevention background, and we have seen cases of coaches and athletic staff abusing athletes. And so we feel that coaches have a tremendous role in prevention, because they can really model what an appropriate relationship should look like with someone who has supervisory power. And that really, as you know, protects the coach and the athletes. And so lastly, we also train coaches on how to handle disclosure if you do ever have that come up in the group. So as you know, when you're doing prevention work, sometimes you might have a young person disclose that they have been raped or they have been abused, and we want coaches to know how to handle that and what their reporting requirements are. Here is the timeline for the coaches and the mentors. So in the preseason, we ask them to attend a training. We send home a parent letter to all parents of athletes, because we're doing coaching boys into men and athletes as leaders with the girls teams. So we have a letter that kind of explains both to parents, and many parents have a child doing both of these programs, so we just send one letter out, and we have that sample letter on our website. We also ask coaches to select a day and time that works best for the session, and then before the first session or at the first session, you have the athletes complete a pre-survey. Then during the season, we just ask that they come at the regular time, at the designated time and place. The mentor facilitates the program. The coach kind of reinforces the messages. There's good communication between the two to make sure the sessions are happening, and then making sure you plan for the end of the season. Another thing I learned with JV teams and JVC teams is that they often don't have a postseason. So sometimes we've had JV and varsity together, and then all of a sudden JV is ending because they have the regular season, whereas varsity is going on to the end. So we want to make sure we really plan thoughtfully so everyone can kind of finish the end, because the last session is really important, which is celebrating the successes and having them fill out a post survey. Next, I'm going to talk about evaluation, and I saw at least one person ask a question about that, so I want to make sure that I have time to go over what we've seen so far in our evaluation. So this is kind of a metaphor. This is another athlete at Garfield, Iman, who won our state championships in the high jump. And I like this kind of metaphor for evaluation because to me it's all about raising the bar. We want to have a program that not only people like, but also that actually does something, right? We want to create some kind of change in the community, whether that's with attitudes or beliefs or even better behaviors, right? So what we've done so far is we've piloted it with 11 teams at our local school in Seattle, Garfield, and that includes golf, soccer, swimming, volleyball, basketball, wrestling, softball, tennis, and track. We've also implemented with the track team at Worland High School in Wyoming, the track team at Level High School in Wyoming, the tennis team at Charles City High School in Iowa, and the softball team at Red River High School in Grand Forks, North Dakota. And that was last spring. So I'm going to share with you the results of this evaluation. Now, when you're looking at this, please note that this is simply just a post survey. So back when we did this last year, we were asking athletes to only do what we call a retrospective pretest. So at the end of the program, we gave them one survey and we said, hey, what was your belief or your opinion before the program? And now after going through the 10 sessions, what is your belief or opinion after the program? And so hopefully you can see this clearly. I know some of the font is small, but I'll just give an example here. So the survey item says, I feel confident that I can challenge the stereotype that girls are weak and inferior. We had 140 respondents on this. This was just at Garfield High School in Seattle. And you can see 63 athletes strongly agreed before the program, and then 116 strongly agreed after the program. The answer selection was on a Likert scale from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And this is just the number that strongly agreed. Now here's another statement where you'd want them to disagree. So I think that boys should always act tough in order to be seen as real men. And you can see 71 athletes strongly disagreed before the program, and then 107 strongly disagreed after the program. We also asked them, I think that SLAY has helped to create a more positive girl culture among sports teams, and 99% agreed. I think the one who disagreed actually explained her answer, and she just said that I think my team already had a positive culture before this program. So I'm going to share with you from our national pilot in Wyoming, Iowa, and North Dakota. We actually saw even bigger results from this pilot, and we had 51 athletes complete this survey. And again, you can see, for example, 8 people strongly agreed that they could recognize the signs of an unhealthy relationship before the program, and 33 said that they strongly agreed after the program. So that's huge as far as improvement. And then my judgment of a girl is usually based on her physical appearance. 6 athletes strongly disagreed before the program, and 24 strongly disagreed after the program. And we also saw a big improvement in athletes who felt that it created a more positive culture on their team. I'd also like to share some feedback that we have received from the athletes. So locally here in Seattle, we had someone say, I think it's really important to talk about these topics as a group, and it helps to understand others' perspectives. Someone else said, it allows a space for girls to talk about the issues and ways to positively change them. And then lastly, another athlete said, the lessons help develop a positive mind frame for females. These were some quotes from our national pilot. So watching the videos was a huge eye-opener to issues that I was not aware of before this. Someone else said, it has made us a stronger team because we've gotten so much more close. And then lastly, someone else said, girls know that they are just as important as men and they can be and do whatever they want. And now I would like to ask Kayla and Carlin to talk about the impact that they have seen after going through the program.
Okay, so after the program, a reflection I had was that I thought it brought our team a lot closer together because Slay, again, provided a very safe environment for my team to be able to speak their mind without being judged or looked at differently by their teammates, be able to open up and really, share their ideals without, ever feeling like someone's going to try to change their minds or make them think differently. And we were able to see things from a different perspective because we usually wouldn't have these types of conversations with ourselves, amongst ourselves. We wouldn't talk about, inequality that girls face. We weren't talking about, what happened last night on MTV or something. And it was pretty much a really fun time to just, really debrief and think about the bigger picture that girls face and talk about really important topics that we wouldn't really talk about if we were on our own. And it really created a really strong bond between us that I think that really helped us on the court and off.
Yeah, and I felt like the program really impacted my team as well. For the girls soccer team, I feel like it opened up a conversation that, like Kayla said, we probably wouldn't have had before. And I remember last year as a junior, there were some seniors that I thought were so cool, and those seniors that are sometimes intimidating. But this program really gives you a space to open up to your teammates and learn about what we're all going through and the same struggles we face regarding rumor spreading, body image issues, and a lot of other negative stereotypes that are impressed upon us that really culminate in high school. And it created that safe space for us to connect and to learn more about each other, to really open up and figure out how to support each other best. And I think it made the team really close, and it also reflected in how we played that season. But the program, for me, actually, it impacted the school as well, not just my sports team, because a group of female-identifying student athletes got to meet with our principal and vice principal to discuss what needs to be done within the school so that our voices are heard. That's how the school focuses on the accomplishments of our boys' team more than that of the girls. And these female athletes who felt underrepresented and not supported equally, but the program opened up an avenue for our voices to be heard within their administration.
Thank you, Kayla and Carlin. And this is Rebecca again. Some of the other changes that I've seen at Garfield is, I think I mentioned before, the program has now kind of become the expectation for all teams. So we do have a school administrator who's really on board and bought in and really just sees the benefit and has shared a lot of anecdotal comments about positive bystander situations where athletes have kind of stepped up and spoken up about some of these issues when there's things going on like fights and bullying and harassment. So like I said, the program's now the expectation for all the teams. The administrator often will kind of make an appearance at the coach training and say, hey, this is an expectation and it's really important to me that you all do this and follow through. And so that's been huge as far as community level change. And with that said, we've had a lot of success, but I always kind of am thinking ahead and moving forward, and there's a lot of work that we still need to do at Garfield. And I know one of the things is talking more about gender equity and aligning the two programs better. So we have the boys team going through, the boys program. We have the girls team going through this program, and then what do we do about teams with all genders? It seems strange to split them up by gender. I think there's value to having this safe space that's gender specific, but I also think that we need to bring all genders together, and we're looking for opportunities next year to do that, to bring maybe all athletes from different teams, all genders, talking more deeply about some of these issues when it comes to intersections and allyship and gender equity and what that would really look like at the school. So that's kind of what we're thinking of for the future, so stay tuned. And I would like to just give you a little preview of our website. So our URL is athletesasleaders.org, and I think several of you know our old URL, which is still valid, which is slayprogram.org. And what you'll see when you go on the website, first of all, check out our new video, which we just released a couple days ago. It's less than a minute long, and you will get a really nice kind of snapshot of the program. You'll get to hear from athletes who have gone through it, and it's short and sweet. So it's all set up for you to share on social media and help spread the word and get stakeholders in your community excited about the program and get them kind of motivated to get this up and started. Then on the website, you'll see lots of tools that you will hopefully find helpful to implement the program. So we've got the program with what has all 10 sessions of the curriculum. We've got tools for advocates, which are people who maybe work in sexual assault, domestic violence prevention who want to get this started. There's an implementation guide. There's all the evaluation tools, the policy guide. For mentors, we have a facilitation guide as well as several other tools. We have a couple resources for teams, which include the athletes and coaches. And then lastly, our contact form. So feel free to get in touch with us if you have any questions about implementing the program. And then I want to lastly just mention a great opportunity that we have that I'm very excited about. So we have a new opportunity, and we're looking for teams out there across the country who are interested in implementing the program with a high school girls team. So we're seeking about 10 to 15 teams nationally to implement the program, and along with local prevention staff and advocates who can support them locally and make sure it happens. We're working with university researchers from University of Pittsburgh and Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh, which is Dr. Liz Miller and Summer Miller-Walfish, on designing an evaluation. The athletes will be expected to complete a pre-survey when you start and then a post-survey when you finish, before and after the program. Then also, I want to mention, the surveys are super short. They're straightforward. We're not going to be asking any kind of personal or sensitive questions. So we don't anticipate that districts will have an issue with that. We're not asking, for example, anything around behaviors or their personal experience with violence. We're not asking for any identifying information, and the data is only going to be used in aggregate form. We also have a partnership with Seattle Children's Hospital, so we're able to offer incentives to pilot sites. You will receive gift cards for turning the surveys in. And after taking the webinar today, you've now kind of had the basic training, and I can continue to provide technical assistance if you need it. We're really trying to prioritize sites who can implement this fall, but we also hope to support teams who can do it this winter season. So if you're interested in participating, please do not hesitate at all to reach out to me directly. I'll give you my personal or my email on the next slide. But also, if you look here at this link, you can get more information, including how to get in touch and give us your contact information if you already know a team that's really going to be interested in doing this. So let me know if you have questions about that. And here is my direct email. So feel free to reach out to me with any questions about the program, as well as certainly if you have interest in the pilot program. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Thanks, Rebecca. So there have been quite a few questions that have come up throughout the session. And so I think it would be great, we have a little time if we could try to answer some of those. So the first one that I wanted to bring up was from Cassidy. And so the question was, were there any students who participated in the program multiple times because maybe they were on multiple sports teams?
Yes, there were. And I can talk briefly about kind of how we handled that.
Sure.
So similar to coaching boys into men, which we're doing with all the boys teams, and SLAY, which we're now calling Athletes as Leaders, with all the girls teams, we did have several athletes that had gone through who played multiple sports. In fact, Carlin, you played multiple sports, right?
Yes, I did.
Carlin played basketball and soccer. And so we handled that a couple ways. One is to offer athletes who've gone through the program before kind of a leadership role. And so Kayla is a good example of that. She had gone through the program, and then the following year we asked her to help facilitate. So that's one idea, is you can engage them as leaders to help you facilitate the program. What athletes have told us, because we have asked them specifically about this, they felt that the session still felt different because a lot of it is discussion based, and the team kind of comes up with these team norms during the team talk. And for each team, those discussions look very different. Also, we would have different facilitators. So oftentimes the athletes would tell us that if they still felt it was very beneficial and valuable to go through it more than once, because it helped them really bond with that team and get to know their teammates on a deeper level, and the discussions sounded different. Now, with that said, because we use videos, we don't want them to become repetitive. And so at some point in the future, we do hope to create, kind of a 2.0 that introduces new topics or even similar topics with different videos. So we hope to do that at some point in the future. And so that's one way kind of how we've handled it. We also, at our school, because we have so many teams doing it, the coaches and the principal and kind of the community stakeholders decided that this would be a requirement for teams every other year. So we don't have teams go through the program every single year, but instead every other year. And so that we feel is still a good way to make sure we have good dosage, because we'll have, you'll always have the incoming freshmen. So there will still be kind of somewhat of a new population that you're working with, especially if you do it every other year. So it won't be too repetitive, but you still make sure that the messages are given to the teams. And then in the off years, we're planning on building on what we've started with other initiatives. So this year we're hoping to have a film forum where we're going to show certain videos and invite athletes and their families to come and view certain movies, such as, for example, The Mask You Live In, talk about how we talk about masculinity in our culture, and then how
you need me to pull something up?
I'm going to go ahead, Rebecca, and mute everyone's line again.
Okay.
All guests have been muted. You can unmute your line by pressing *6.
Rebecca, you should be able to unmute yourself now. And I'm going to ask all of our other guests, if you're not speaking, if you would keep yourself on mute right now. We're having a lot of feedback, and I'm not able to get to the source of that. Thank you. Rebecca, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. Thank you. I'm not sure if you had more to add to that answer.
No, that was it. I think
Great.
that's it. If you have any more questions, I'm happy to answer, or Kayla and Carlin, I'm sure too, can give their input.
Yeah. So there was another one that was more kind of logistical. It was from Heidi, and Heidi asked, where are the so you just were mentioning videos, but where are coaches showing the videos if these are being done during practice?
So the way that we have done the videos is we have used a classroom that's in the school, and so we have the built-in, kind of technology in that classroom with the laptop and projector. But we've also had teams that were not able to have access to that classroom or to a classroom. And so the way that other teams have done it is they have either somehow connected to Wi-Fi and just use a tablet or a phone or a laptop. Some teams actually do it out on the field, and so they're able to show the video with any kind of, using data or Wi-Fi out there. Or if they're not able to access it at all, then actually I had a coach today email me and say somehow she was able to download the videos, but I have no idea how to do that myself. I haven't done that personally. But we also have had coaches and athletes, you could have a team captain do this, send it out to everyone ahead of time. So maybe the evening before they're all sent the link, and then everybody can watch it and be ready to discuss at the next practice. So you can send it out. A lot of the teams. Kayla and Carlin, do you have a group chat usually with the team, or a social media page, or how do you communicate with the whole team usually?
Yeah, my team has a group chat. Group chat, and then sometimes like Facebook pages or something. So yeah.
Okay. So you could utilize that, and a lot of times teams already have that set up.
Great, thank you. So another question, this came from Brooke, and Brooke asked, how does the curriculum address culturally specific communities where there are closer community ties and family relations between coaches and players? Is that something that you've addressed, or have you seen that?
I want to make sure I understand the question. Can you say it again?
So it was, how does the curriculum address culturally specific communities where there are closer community ties and family relations amongst coaches and players? So it sounds like if, I'm sorry, go ahead, Rebecca.
Oh, I just want to make sure I understand. So are we talking about kind of maybe smaller communities, close-knit communities where you might have the coach or the mentor be a family member or kind of have a different relationship with athletes on the team?
That's what it's sounding like to me. And Brooke, if you're still with us and do you want to provide any clarity around that? You can use the text chat to do that. But Brooke is saying yes.
Okay, so that is a great question, and I would love to put some more thought into it and kind of answer, after I have a chance to kind of really more discuss with you. So I encourage you, maybe we can have a conversation outside of the group. But my immediate thought is that I think that this program would still work we try to make this program culturally competent in the sense that we really try not to talk just about sexual assault and what it is, but also kind of the deeper cultural context that rape culture occurs within. So we do try to talk about some of the intersections of racism, of homophobia, and of sexism, and how they intersect and all contribute to rape culture. We also, at least locally, we have had one group where one of the athletes' relatives, as an older sister, was the facilitator for the group. And we kind of went back and forth whether that would be a good fit or not. And we just kind of asked and consulted with the community, which I think is always kind of the best rule of thumb in order to make sure that you're serving your community and being culturally responsive, is to kind of ask them what they think. And in this case, they thought it would work well to have this older sister who had recently graduated from college come back and volunteer at the school and be a mentor for one of the teams. And again, I'm happy to talk further. If you want to continue the conversation, just reach out.
Great. And I think, Rebecca, because there were quite a few questions, we'd love to be able to follow up for folks on them. So if we didn't get to your question, we will work on doing that and getting those responses out. One more quick question that I had a couple private chats come my way regarding is, Rebecca, this is intended for high school students. Has there been any thought or plans to work with middle school students?
So at this point, it is designed for high school students, and I have heard from one of our pilot sites in Wyoming that one of the community members there is interested in creating a middle school adaptation, and we welcome communities to adapt things to best serve the needs of their community. I personally have never implemented this in middle school, and if I were to, I would definitely make some modifications. But I wonder if Kayla and Carlin have any thoughts on this idea of using this program either for middle school or even older, maybe for college age.
I think that it would actually be great to start it with middle schoolers. I think the younger we can start it, the more impact it might have, because then later on they'll be able to, have knowledge about this topic and be able to, pass it on to those who may not know. I don't think you'll have any backlash really, but just really educate them so that, you know, at that age they're like sponges, so they'll maybe learn more and be more open to learning about that type of subject.
I agree that it's really effective implemented in middle school. There would definitely have to be some slight changes within the curriculum, but I think it's definitely something that could be worked towards to the future.
Thank you all so much for those answers, and like I said, we will work to get any unanswered questions answered and out to you all. Lindsay, I'm going to go ahead and pass this to you because I'm still having some technical issues. But I'd love to hear about the Reliance resources that are coming down the line. And Lindsay, if you're talking,
can you hear me now?
There you go.
Okay, there we are. Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, so as I mentioned previously, one of the things that Reliance is working on, in addition to supporting local grants that, that supported the work of athletes as leaders, is we have been producing our own resources that will be released in September 2017 that hopefully will help with a couple of the things that came up on the web conference today. So in the sport package that you see will contain 3 resources that Reliance has pulled together after almost 2 years of exploring sexual violence prevention in and through the sport pipeline. So one aspect of one product of the sport package will be the overview report, which we hope that will help you get buy-in and make a case for sexual violence prevention in and through sport if you haven't already made a connection to your local sport organization or within the you're working with. So the overview report will provide a literature review that gives some statistics around the prevalence of perpetration and victimization in and through sports, as well as evidence-based prevention programming in the sport pipeline. The second product will be a theory of change, which is a framework for prevention in and through sport. So we hope that the theory of change will allow you to connect your specific violence prevention, sexual violence prevention programming that you're doing in your community to a broader change strategy, and also help to encourage, if you're already doing some sexual violence prevention programming with the sport community, to help to expand and really try to look at how to implement comprehensive prevention strategies through that system. And then last but not least, the third product that the Reliance Sport Package will contain is a strategy map. So particularly for those of you that were asking about resources that are available within the middle school, and maybe thinking about different parts of the sport pipeline. So with youth sports, with high school sports, with collegiate sports, and even engaging in what's happening at the pro level, you can visit Reliance's strategy map and see the existing sexual violence prevention strategies being implemented right now in sport. So we hope that that'll be a really great tool for the field to use to look at where there's both traction and where there's gaps within the sport pipeline, and also look at not just education and programming resources, but awareness raising resources and template policies and partnerships and communities of practice that are happening. So there's a variety of strategies that we name in that strategy map that you can go look at. So we're really excited about that. Stay tuned and visit reliance.org in September 2017. And here is my information. If you have any questions about that or want to be added to our listserv when we will announce that that's released, feel free to email me. It's there at lmap@reliance.org. You can also visit reliance.org to see more of what we're doing. And again, Prevent Connect is, I'm co-hosting this with Ashley and a proud partner with Prevent Connect on this web conference, and Reliance is really lucky to have the expertise of Prevent Connect in this partnership.
Thanks, Lindsay, and thanks for being here. And I just wanted to, as we close out this session, say a big thank you and just how grateful I am that Kayla, Carlin, or Rebecca, you all came on this web conference and shared this really, really wonderful work you're all doing with athletes as leaders. Thank you, Kayla and Carlin, specifically for sharing, what it was like to be part of that program and just sharing all of the knowledge that you have behind that and your experience. Really appreciate that and value your voices. And Rebecca, thank you so much as well for all of the information and for being so willing to answer all of the many questions that have come up. So I just want to say thank you all, our wonderful audience. We will be getting this recording and all of the other materials, questions, answers to your questions out within the next couple days or so. If you need anything in the meantime, you can always email me. But thank you all so much. Thank you, Lindsay, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your Tuesday. This concludes our Prevent Connect web conference for today. Take care.